So let's go over what we know so far about the new Codex Death Guard. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, the strategy-focused 40k channel, where today we're talking about all the many rules previews that Games Workshop have given us for the new upcoming Codex Death Guard. It's going to be the first Chaos Codex of 9th, its price is likely to be £30 or $50, in line with Codex Space Marines or Necrons, and its release is due in January due to issues shipping the Codex. Based on the codexes that have come beforehand, plus all of the various bits that we've shown off, we've got a fairly good idea of what's going to be in it. Pretty much every army-wide special rule has had a revamp. There's an absolute ton of datasheet changes, including 2 Wound Plague Marines and 3 Wound Terminators, Demon Engines hitting on 3s, and at least 2 new datasheets in this Miasmic Malignifier, and the new Lord of Virulence. In addition, we can certainly expect new Crusade rules, stratagems, psychic powers, warlord traits and relics, and it seems that each new codex in 9th edition comes out with a new special rule where you can pay for your characters to have an upgrade of some sort for points and power level, and the Death Guard version of this appears to be deadly pathogens, which look like they're going to be upgrades on your plague weapons. There should be a few more unique secondary objectives to make life harder for the armies that don't have codexes yet, but one thing I'm quite interested to see is whether or not they keep those plague companies that they introduced in Psychic Awakening. I suspect that they probably will, maybe just have a warlord trait and a stratagem each, but so far we haven't had any official confirmation. We know that the plague-related warlord traits are going to be staying, so hopefully that's a soft sign that plague companies will remain. In terms of army-wide special rules, there's really quite a lot that's going on for Death Guard in this update. First of all, judging by Mortarian's datasheet, it appears that they have a new bubonic Astartes keyword, which is likely to be replacing Heretic Astartes on all Death Guard datasheets. For the most part, this isn't going to matter too much, but I suspect its main effect will be to kill some inter-codex options. Without the Heretic Astartes keyword, you're not going to be able to cast Warp Time from an allied sorcerer, or make weird mixed attachments of Chaos Space Marines and Death Guard. It's going to be one or the other now. Plague weapons have been confirmed to still be reroll wound rolls of 1, so that's something that's staying the same at least. Inexorable Advance has been changed though. Rather than rapid fire at 18 inches for bolters and plasma weapons, it now gives you a trio of buffs. Infantry ignore movement modifiers, so they won't be slowed up by terrain or enemy psychic effects and things. Infantry counters stationary for the purposes of malicious volleys or firing heavy weapons, so Plague Marines marching forward should be rapid firing at 24 inches. And any vehicles that get into close combat will be able to shoot at enemies in engagement range without any penalty to their ballistic skill, so your Plague Burst Crawlers and Mephitic Blight Haulers will be quite happy blazing away in close combat. Deadly Pathogens is that upgrade to the plague weapons carried by characters. It's really going to depend on just how much they cost, but we have had one previewed, which is Viscous Death. This one allows you to reroll the number of attacks for a plague weapon, if it's something like a Plague Spewer or a Twin Plague Spewer, something with a random number of shots. It'll apparently also grant +1 to the strength of the weapon as well, which is quite cool, so it could be a pretty reasonable upgrade. Could be particularly interesting with the Foul Blight Spawn and his Plague Sprayer. Next we have Remorseless, which allows you to ignore combat attrition modifiers, a kind of nothing morale boost there to be honest. With morale the way it is in 9th edition, I think you're going to be lucky if that saves you 1 Death Guard model fleeing per game. We know the identity of some core units. They've confirmed that the core Death Guard infantry units are Plague Marines, both sets of Terminators and Possessed. They made no mention of Poxwalkers or Cultists, so I'm going to imagine that they're not going to be core. But I do suspect that the Hellbrutes probably will be, to mirror their loyalist kin, if for no other reason than the Forge World Contemptor Dreadnoughts for Chaos also got the core keyword. Perhaps the biggest news of the lot was the change to Disgustingly Resilient. Gone is the 5+ Feel No Pain type save, and instead it's a -1 to all damage. Honestly, with the buff to the number of wounds of Plague Marines and Terminators, it maths out to be fairly similar. Sure, the rule itself isn't as powerful versus 1 wound, 1 damage weapons, but all of the infantry will have more wounds, so they'll be just as tough against this. It's amazing against damage too, so for me the only way it's really significantly nerfed is against really big, high-shot, multi-damage weapons, such as melter weapons. I know there's a lot of sad sentiment about it changing though, as that 5+ Feel No Pain was kind of synonymous with the Death Guard, and it really does feel pretty weird to have such a core ability changed quite so drastically. With a bit of luck though, they'll still be able to get a Feel No Pain type save via that Plague Surgeon. Last but not least, we have the bonus for Death Guard going pure, which is Contagions of Nurgle. You only get this one if you're not allied to any demons or any other chaos forces, but the rule is really quite powerful indeed. It's an expanding aura of -1 toughness that gets bigger and bigger as the game grows on, starting at 1 inches away from Death Guard models turn 1, all the way up to 9 inches on turn 4. -1 toughness is a really powerful debuff, particularly as it can be used against both ranged and melee. You're going to be wounding Space Marines on 3s with your Plague Knives and Bolters, and dropping the toughness of harder targets like Gravis Armor Space Marines and Toughness 8 vehicles is going to be very nice indeed. Certainly a powerful incentive to play Death Guard just as they are, rather than mixing and matching between the Chaos Super faction. We do know that the Death Guard are getting at least 2 new models in the decks. First up we have this Lord of Virulence, which we don't know all that much about at the moment. He's a Terminator character and has some sort of synergy with demon engines. I'd be very surprised if he doesn't make them a little bit better at shooting, maybe gives them some sort of reroll. We know that that weapon is now a twin Plague Spewer, 12-inch range, heavy 2d6, strength 5, AP -1 and damage 1. You're to be very quickly purging enemy infantry there. You're averaging about 5 dead guardsmen per turn, or around about 3 wounds off Space Marines. I strongly suspect he's going to be no slouch in combat either, with what looks like a plague weapon Power Fist in his left hand. The other new option is the Miasmic Malignifier. This is a new faction-specific fortification for the Death Guard, and it's honestly looking like it could be quite useful. For some reason, they've said that it can set up somewhere 12 inches away from the enemy deployment zone, so you can potentially plonk this plague chimney down somewhere in the midfield and create a fairly punishing area of area denial. If the enemies get within 9 inches of it, they're going to be suffering that Contagions of Nurgle ability and get -1 toughness, so it's going to be very easy to deal with them. On top of that, if the enemy does destroy it, it's going to have some sort of putrid explosion in death, which I suspect will be an explosion that affects things that aren't Nurgle, and if your Death Guard do move up into its buff range, then it can give some light cover to Death Guard units within 6 inches. To me, this looks like it could be shaping up to be one of the more usable fortifications in 40k, though of course we will have to see its points cost and toughness values before we can really say either way. Finally, we have quite a few details from the datasheets now, particularly so for Mortarion himself, as Warhammer Community gave us his entire datasheet for free. They've confirmed his points cost will be remaining at 490 points, he's toughness 8 now, and between that and getting -1 damage from Disgusting Resilience, he's still going to be a massive pain to shift. He's gained an extra attack on his base profile, and his scythe attacks are now damage D3+3 now, so gaining a fair bit over the random damage D6 that he has. His reroll abilities have got a bit of a buff. He now gives reroll 1s to all core Death Guard units, but also one unit can reroll all hits, not just ones. But he does seem to have traded out his very nice Mortal Wound aura, where everything around him started to die in the fight phase, for an extra Warlord trait, where he can choose one of the various Plague-type Warlord traits, the ones that we saw from Psychic Awakening. One question that Mortarion's datasheet does raise for me, though, is whether or not Hateful Assault is still a thing, the extra attack on the charge that Space Marines typically get. It doesn't appear to feature on his datasheet, so it makes me wonder whether or not it's just going to go away for the Death Guard, and instead they'll just get extra attacks on their base profile instead, just like the Plague Marines got. Would be a bit of a shame if it is gone, to be honest. I was thinking that 3-attack Plague Marines were sounding very interesting in close combat. Demon Engines, as we mentioned, are now all confirmed to be Ballistic Skill 3 now. No big deal on Plague Splitters and the like, but very good news for the Plague Burst Mortar and Entropy Cannons on the Plague Burst Crawler. Both the Blight Haulers and Bloat Drones are all 9 wounds now, so a bit of a buff for the durability of the Haulers, a bit of a downgrade for the Bloat Drones, but at least it doesn't degrade anymore. Plague Splitters are a flat strength 6, Entropy Cannons are damage D3+3, and there have been a couple of other minor changes here and there, such as small buffs to the Rottail Volley Gun on the Plague Burst Crawler, and the Blight Launcher carried by the feated Bloat Drone. Plague Marines, as we mentioned, are 2 wounds now and 2 attacks, so even with the changed Disgusting Resilient, they're going to be an absolute nightmare to shift, though their actual strength will depend on exactly what sort of points bump they get. I strongly suspect that they're going up. I'd guess somewhere around 21 to 23 points. I guess we're going to have to wait and see. From the leaked datasheet that appeared online, it appears that Plague Knives and Plague Swords are both AP -1, and Plague Swords have gained +1 strength as well as that. Could bode very well for Plague Bearers when the Chaos Demons Codex drops. And there's a few other minor changes such as the Plague Flame type weapons, such as Plague Belchers going to 12-inch range. Finally, for the datasheets, Warhammer Community mentioned about Possessed to us. Rather than having horrifying mutations for D3 attacks, they're going to have a flat 4 attacks, not too bad at strength 5, AP -2, damage 1, and their horrifying mutations are also plague weapons as well, so they'll likely be re-rolling 1s to wound on top of that. Death Guard Possessed are going to be toughness 5, though we don't have final confirmation on whether or not they're getting Disgusting Resilience on top of that. In general, from the datasheets, it looks like everything's getting buffed in one way or another, but we are going to have to wait and see exactly how strong everything is after the points changes come into effect. They're going to be a very big deal indeed for exactly how strong Death Guard are post-Codex. So overall, I think there's quite a lot of reasons to be positive about the new Death Guard Codex being pretty strong. Inexorable, Advanced and Remorseless have got a bit stronger than previously. It still seems that Plague Marines are likely going to be tougher, even with the new Disgusting Resilience due to their 2 wounds. Plenty of extra nice little options on the datasheets, but perhaps the biggest deal and biggest buff to the faction are the new Contagions of Nurgle, making a pure Death Guard force into much more scary as damage dealers, as well as just durable tanky bags of disease. As always, if I've missed anything off this list, or there's any more new information that comes out, feel free to post it down in the comments below. It's always good to be better informed, and I'll most certainly be covering the full Death Guard Codex when we do have more details. If you've enjoyed the video, feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics for more like this. Hopefully we'll get a few videos on Death Guard on the go when they come out in January. Finally, if you'd like to help support the channel and keep the videos coming, I'd just like to mention that I do have an Element Games affiliate link, which you can find down in the video description. If you live in the UK and are thinking about buying any Warhammer in the near future, then Element is a pretty good discount retailer, with between 10 and 20% off Games Workshop products, and very good customer service in my experience. If you were thinking about ordering any miniatures in, feel free to click the link in the video description down below. If you do click through and buy something, a small amount goes to help Auspex Tactics without costing you any more whatsoever. Can just be a small way to help support the channel if you were thinking about buying something anyway. For people in the USA and Canada, I do also have an Amazon affiliate link. That one basically works in the exact same way. Just click through and buy anything whatsoever from Amazon. A small amount goes to help support the channel, again doesn't cost you any more. A massive thank you to you guys who have been using those links. It really does help justify all the time spent making tactics videos about model soldiers. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.